And welcome back to the Cooler Jets podcast. We're with Ben Blessington and Michael Nania. Well, Michael, 1-2, week 4, Sunday Night Football. Not the matchup we were expecting when this was first announced, but this is the Jets' first game on Sunday Night Football since 2011. I mean, actual Sunday Night Football. I guess the Buff Fumble was primetime NBC on Thanksgiving, but it's been a long time. We were robbed of the Rodgers-Mahomes matchup, but no matter. Jets started 1-2 last year. Jets had a similar game last year where they lost to the Patriots. Season felt over, and then they beat the Bills right before their bye, and that kind of rejuvenated the fan base. Going to be an uphill battle in this one. I think everybody's picking against the Jets, but there are a few reasons to be intrigued with this matchup. I feel like I don't want to sell a bill of goods here and try to act like we're super optimistic about this matchup because, let's be honest, Chiefs are an offensive juggernaut, defending champs, and the Jets have Zach Wilson at quarterback. So, with that said, Michael, how you feeling, man? How you feeling? Let's record this Thursday afternoon, a few days out before Sunday Night Football.
Not too optimistic. I think for the most
tell.
part, I'm usually a really optimistic guy, but as you can attest, based on I'm pretty optimistic. I think as you can attest with the way I've been, kind of the vibes I'm giving off here as we started to record this, not super excited or optimistic this time around. Kind of hard to find the reasons to be optimistic. But with that being said, any given Sunday in the NFL, and as you mentioned, I think going into that Bills game last year, none of us were really optimistic at that point. And look what they went out and did. And also, like you said before we started recording, the Jets, even, with a controversy at quarterback, might even be a better team right now than they were at that point.
We had that debate.
Becton, AVT, Brees Hall, and some of the other additions. So they can absolutely win this game. They're capable of winning any game. I think they've proven that with the way they've handled the Bills these last 2 years, with the way this defense has played. So could they win any game? Sure, but it's very hard for me to sit here and even picture a scenario where it happens. So, but we're going to get into it and hopefully find some reasons to some potential paths of victory in this game, because they're tough, but they're there.
Yeah, I mean, what's different about this matchup than, let's say, Buffalo week 1? I mean, assuming that they only had Rodgers for 4 plays. So this is essentially similar matchup, superstar, alien quarterback. Jets going to try to rush 4, get home, create takeaways, take away the big plays, and then just try to get enough points on offense. This is also a quarterback that Saleh for 3.5-ish, I'll say 3 quarters in the Super Bowl, did exceptionally well against until Mahomes and turned it on in the fourth quarter. I don't know. I think the Jets are going to keep this game close. I'm not going to predict a win, but I have a few things where I'm like, I don't think this is going to be the shit show that we're all expecting with Taylor Swift in the house and the whole nation watching. I think this Jets defense keeps it close. I mean, we'll get more into the preview stuff later, but I guess
we can assure you there will be no stupid song title puns made in this podcast, so don't close.
I don't think I can even. I don't know how many Taylor Swifts songs can you name?
I can probably name a few, but
Jesus.
I would not be using a few. I said a few.
I liked
like
who. I want to give the right credit, but whoever had the tweet that was basically like before every third down, they should just show Taylor Swift in the jumbotron, just to get.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, I think it was at Zazzy Jets. I think he's the host of the Oklahoma Joe podcast.
To be honest, I don't really mind the whole storyline because I just like drama in general. It's fun.
She's just who gives a shit.
Even if you're not like totally interested in it, it's just a storyline. It's something to pay attention to. But what I don't like is all the brands and media people who think they're funny by making puns and stuff like that. You're not funny. Stop it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, we're going to be unhinged on this podcast. If this season really goes down the drain, we have a lot of people that I think we try to keep things professional. Don't go after anybody in particular, but I'll wait till a bye week, see where we're at. 1-2. We'll talk about the Chiefs game, but I guess let's talk about the All-22 for the Pats game. You and I both watched it. Pretty in-depth. You and I both went through every single Zach Wilson snap and, grading the process on it. And you tweeted out some clips on Twitter, sparked some conversations. We'll start there, and then we'll kind of move through some different topics, then get to the Chiefs game. But yeah, all starts with Zach Wilson. Jets brought in Trevor Siemian this week, which is, I don't know how you feel about it, but I was uninspired when I saw the signing and still kind of feel that way. You tweeted out some clips of Simeon, and I was like, all right, he's a little better than I maybe thought. The only Trevor Simeon memories I really have is him breaking his leg like 3 plays into his Jets debut in 2019. He
Will fit right in.
led right to Luke Falk. What do you think about? I mean, I know I was about to ask you about Zach Wilson's all 22, but I figure this kind of ties in with it. When you watch Trevor Simeon's all 22, how does it stack up to what we've been used to watching as with Zach Wilson these first 3 games?
Well, yeah, I was kind of uninspired at first when I heard the announcement, but then I thought more about it and what some of the options are right now, the realistic choices, and I don't know. I mean, I guess he's about as far up there as you could go, unless you trade for like a Ryan Tannehill or Kirk Cousins. If they wanted to do that, trade the picks that it would take for a rental, if those guys are even available, obviously that would be better. But other than that, I mean, looking at the guys who are available, I would probably put Simeon up there. Wentz is the other guy, and I've advocated for him as well. He would definitely be more exciting and have a higher ceiling,
Is
but
he more
I
exciting?
think there's a lot just because he's a high draft pick and was an MVP candidate one season, but I
You
think
read
there's a
about
much
some of
lower
that.
floor.
You read about some of that
Yeah,
leadership stuff too. You're like,
and then
oh
there's some of
boy.
the leadership stuff as well. So I think there's a lot more risk to him than a lot of people realize. Probably higher ceiling than Simeon, but the floor, I think his floor is he could be exactly what Zach Wilson is right now. That's kind of what a lot of people thought he was with Washington last year. But I mean, with Simeon, I think he gives you a floor that is higher than what Zach Wilson is giving you right now. He's protected the ball pretty decently in his career, especially the past couple of years. I mean, the same couple of years ago, he played, I think, 6 games, and he only had 3 interceptions, 11 touchdowns. So that ratio right there is more than anything you could hope for with Zach Wilson, based on what he's shown so far. But I did watch through a lot of that Saints season, some of the film from that, and I mean, he is what he is. Like, there's no physical talent whatsoever. He doesn't have good arm strength, good anticipation. He's not particularly mobile or anything like that. But I did, the biggest thing right now, which we'll get into when we talk about Zach's film, is in between the years and the decision making and the processing, the field vision, all those things. Especially in this game, it was the open receivers that weren't capitalized on. And when watching Simeon, I did feel like, because I looked for exactly that, because that's the biggest question we want to answer right now. Can the Jets find someone who's going to hit the open receivers when they're there and the pass protection is good? And I looked for that, and I thought in that respect he did a pretty good job. He didn't really leave too much on the field when it was open. I don't think he's super fast going through his reads. I'm not saying like, oh, he's a veteran, he's immobile, so that means he has an amazing brain in the pocket or anything like that. He's not the fastest going through the reads, but I did feel like when something open was there, he did a good job getting to it. He does have that Mike White trait of where he's very patient in the pocket. He will stand there and make throws while taking hits. He had a lot of really good throws that year while getting absolutely destroyed. So he has that to him. He's tough in the pocket. And then I think he does a really good job of he has confidence downfield, and maybe it's a little misguided because he's not super talented with the deep throws, but he did hit a couple of them. His deep accuracy in his career is, I think, slightly below average based on what the numbers have put out there, which is still quite far ahead of Zach Wilson, who's second worst this year on 20-plus yard passes, tied with Mac Jones, only 17% adjusted completion percentage. Simeon was up around 50% in that Saints season, which was middle of the pack. So decent deep accuracy, but more importantly, he had the confidence to try them. I saw a lot of third and longs where he would push the ball downfield, and so it did lead to some of his interceptions because he can, sometimes challenge windows that maybe he shouldn't, be a little over aggressive, but he also hit a lot of deep conversions as well, which Zach Wilson right now seems to be too afraid to try some of those aggressive throws, especially on third and long, where we saw a bunch of checkdowns in this Patriots game. So, I mean, for the most part, I think, what the ceiling is. He's never going to have a great game for you. If you need to win a shootout, he's not going to do it. But I think some of these games the Jets have lost recently, going back the end of last season, I do think in those same shoes, Trevor Simeon could win those games for you. This Patriots game we just saw, maybe both of the ones last year. Lions game, I'm not sure because some of that had to do with, the lack of deep plays against a Lions team that was playing a lot of
Hit a few
man,
deep plays. Come on
stacking
now.
the box. which Zach Wilson did. So that one questionable. Jaguars was a total team mess. But at least these last 3 Patriots games where you just needed the quarterback to not mess up and capitalize on the easy stuff, and that would have been enough. I think Trevor Siemian could have done that. So yeah, I think if Zach continues to bomb and you have to turn to Siemian, he is the type of guy who, at the very least, can not blow these games where the defense puts the Jets in a position to win. So I do think he's a better quarterback than Zach Wilson right now, barring improvements over the next few games, which hopefully we see because Siemian gives you no ceiling. So hopefully Zach can outplay him. But I do think if I need to win a game today, but if I need actually this game, probably I'll take Zach Wilson because you want that ceiling against a Chiefs type of offense. But the average game, especially against the Patriots, any team where you think the defense can hold it down, I'm gonna take Siemian over Wilson right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing is this team is good enough that if they can just get like 20th ranked quarterback play, they can win a lot of games. They can potentially push for a playoff spot. And I think that's kind of a good jumping off point for my feelings watching this Zach Wilson all 22, because I think even going back to his rookie year, a lot of people have been tweeting out different BYU highlights and clips, and they're like, what happened to Zach Wilson? And there's a lot of flaws that I guess you could, looking back and being like, okay, well, he has 5 seconds to throw in the pocket at BYU. Who is he playing against? COVID year, no fans, whatever. There are definite red flags, and you and I both talked about them at the time, but there's no denying that he looks like a completely different quarterback, flaws aside. And I think going back to his rookie year, I remember having this feeling of, you watch him against the Panthers his rookie year. He made some mistakes, but he also had some pretty amazing throws. And they lost that game. It wasn't particularly close. But looking back at his career, it's actually one of his better games, which is pretty sad to say. And then he has the meltdown against Belichick in New England. And I mean, what was it? 3 interceptions in his first 10 passes, something like that. When you and I were both there, it was a clusterfuck. And then I remember Salas saying, the next week going into Denver, similar messaging that we got heading into this Patriots game. Like, he just can't turn the ball over. We need him to be, that game manager, crawl before you run, or whatever he was saying. Like, the messaging was very much like, take care of the football, manage the game, and we're going to see results. And then if you remember that Tennessee game, that's when they kind of just let him throw a lot. I mean, because the Jets got down early and they started having to throw on first down. He was attacking downfield. And ultimately, he had his best game as a Jet. I mean, that's his 4th career game. And I remember heading into Atlanta, we were all talking about, let Zach Wilson loose. This is the type of quarterback he is. Maybe he's just not the game manager type of quarterback. You don't want to kill his confidence. You want him firing downfield as the gunslinger. You just have to accept that he's going to make mistakes. And through that, you're going to see some growth. I remember the Falcons game was fairly ugly and not much to take note, I guess, over. And then he got injured the next game and he was out for a month, and Mike White and whatever. All that to say, how do you feel about Zach Wilson and the way the Jets have coached him? Before we hop into this all 22, and there are plenty of flaws to talk about, what do you kind of think about the mindset that the Jets have clearly instilled into Zach Wilson heading to this game? Because that's what really jumps out when you see this film. You could tell watching the broadcast, but it's even more evident when you see the all 22 that they clearly beat it into this kid this week. If you don't turn the ball over, we're going to win. And if we're looking for baby steps, this was the first time he was able to play Bill Belichick and the Patriots and not turn the ball over. So, I guess a standing ovation for Zach Wilson on that one. But you know what? Honestly, mentally, for his confidence,
round of applause.
It's something. But they clearly said, don't turn the ball over and we can win. And let's be honest, if they didn't have the one blown play, that might have been true. But, ultimately you saw a guy who didn't want to throw into tight windows, was second-guessing himself, was timid, was quick to go to the check down, was quick to bail out of the pocket, because I wonder if they also told him, like, hey, C-man coverage, don't be afraid to use his legs. And because of that, anytime the pressure started to bear down on him, you'd see him rely on that ability to get out of sacks, which is, I would say, pretty elite. But the problem is he's not good from the pocket, and so he relies on that ability too much, and it just blows up plays. I mean, he's good at getting away from the sacks, but it's not like he's good at doing anything with that. So anyway, we can hop into the all-22, but I'm just curious to kind of get your thoughts, because I think the mindset is going to be different entering this week, because, like you said, the Chiefs are so high-powered on offense. The Jets are going to need to throw on first down. They can't play this conservative style of football. You're going to get, as corny as it is to say, Zach Wilson unleashed, and it might lead to 3 or 4 interceptions and a terrible QBR and a meltdown of a game. But I don't think the Jets have any other choice. And perhaps looking back, maybe that is how the Jets should have played him, is because it seems like this is a guy who's lost all confidence in his arm. And you do go back to BYU and you kind of see that gunslinger. So what do you kind of make of that? Do the Jets deserve any blame for how they've kind of coached Zach Wilson? Or is this nothing they could have done?
Well, I think you go back to what we said ahead of the Patriots game, and we wanted them to unleash him in this game and let him throw him first down, take advantage of some of the aggressive defense you get, loaded boxes, man coverage, all that. But they didn't. They they ran on the majority of their first downs. Predictably, they went nowhere, and they had to keep throwing out of second, third, and long, which, with the way he's playing, is the last situation you want him throwing from. So you and I know that. It's puzzling as to why they didn't know that going to this game.
Defensive
played
coach.
out exactly as we are saying. And yeah, so I think there's something to be said for, is there a little bit too much of a conservative approach being coached into him, this especially after last season. I think that's where it really came in because, 21, his rookie year, it's hard to say that they may have coached him that way because they didn't have the defense that year. It was an atrocious defense. Even if they wanted it to be good,
maybe that was the year they should have just let him turn the ball over a ton.
Yeah, it would be a great year because I know he finished the year with like a bunch of 0 interception games, and he had some solid games to close the year, but he wasn't really airing it out. So I mean, maybe that was the year to just let him run wild and to be more aggressive. But I think last year, once they figured out that this was a really good defense, and they won some of those games with him not even playing well, and some of them were blowouts like the Packers game. I think maybe from that point they started to say, after they lost that Patriots game, is maybe a turning point where they said, just don't turn the ball over, play safe, and we can win some games. Especially you look at that Bills game plan when they beat them last year. That was maybe the safest game plan of his career, and he did play pretty well in that game. It's one of his better games, but it was just such an easy game plan. Unfortunately, it worked with the way the Bills were playing in that game, and they were also missing a bunch of defensive starters, so that contributed. But yeah, maybe there's something to be said for it. And if they want to win this week and any game he plays this year, they're going to have to trust him more on first down, on play action, on third and long to let him take some shots downfield, because if a quarterback is struggling, the last situation you want him to be throwing in is when the defense knows he's going to be passing. When he has the advantage is when he at least has that leverage of, okay, we can catch the defense off guard. Now we can create some natural throwing windows off that. So you have to trust him to be able to do that. Early down throws in situations where it's not expected. So
yeah,
they need to do that if they want to win games. But at the same time, I do think I don't know, because some players just don't have it to be an NFL quarterback. And at this point, we've seen Zach Wilson fail against a lot of different teams with a lot of different game plans and at a lot of different things. And at some point, which I think we've crossed that point by now, it's just clear that a guy just doesn't have it. And that seems like the case here. And he wouldn't be the first guy to have great college film who gets to the NFL and looks like he's completely lost, because it's just a massive jump in competition and the complexity of what you need to be doing between the ears to succeed under center at the professional level. So it happens to a lot of guys. Not everyone can be successful, and sometimes you miss on a quarterback. It just happens. So I think that's what happened here, more so than the Jets failing with the coaching or anything. And they didn't do a great job, as we know, between the inexperienced staff they put him in with, the offensive line not being the greatest, and, it was banged up a lot. That contributed, but didn't do the best job with that. The weapons, I think they did a decent job, especially in the second season. Got a really good weapon. So not the greatest job of all time, but at the end of the day, there has been enough, especially we saw it on the film last year, that the opportunities were there and they're just not capitalized on. So ultimately, I think this just boils down to, he doesn't have it, but at the same time, in this situation right now, if this is where they are, and if they want to make it work as best as they can, you got to live and die with Zach Wilson letting it rip. If it gets ugly on Sunday Night Football, it gets ugly. But
yeah,
it sure beats running into walls all day and losing that way, because that might not be as potentially embarrassing, but it has a higher chance of leading to a loss than just taking the risk of maybe he'll make some mistakes, but he also might hit a few bombs, and maybe you can win the game.
Yeah, like you said, like I do think there's a good chance that he just doesn't have it. But I also do think, and I said this in the last pod, I can't shake this feeling, and you push back on this, that he's going to be like Geno in 4 or 5 years, because he clearly has the physical talent that very few quarterbacks have. It's the mental stuff, it's the processing, it's the pre-snap, and we'll hop into some of it. But I do think, just in terms of their philosophy for this game, I think you have a defensive coach. They are better than expected last year, and I think, and also people kind of forget that he missed all of August and September his second year, right? Because he got hurt in that first preseason game, and like I do think that sets him back a little bit. He gets back into the driver's seat, and this defense is winning games, and the mentality just shifts to don't hold us back, just don't turn the ball over, manage the game. And I do feel like that's just not the quarterback Zach Wilson is, especially early in his career. This offensive line also isn't good enough to carry the run game in loaded boxes. I mean, I think that's the other thing. And like you were saying this last week, and I agreed with what you were saying, but I did have the same mentality as Saleh and the Jets last week of like, hey, your defense is elite. You can beat the Patriots at home if Zach doesn't turn the ball over. And that's clearly was the messaging. But I think looking back on it, it's like, hey, this offensive line isn't good enough like the 09, 2010 Jets, where they can run against stacked boxes and run on first down and keep themselves in second and third and short and manageable and not put too much on Sanchez's shoulders, and then have stifling defense on the other side of things. I think with Zach Wilson and with this current offense and defense, like you said, the best situation for Zach is when he's confident, and that's going to come on throwing on first down, keeping him in easier situations. Because, and you could definitely see this from his BYU film. And one of the things that people talked about in the scouting report is this is a guy who can run a really good play action offense for you. And I'm not sure necessarily how true that is, but some of his best plays have definitely come on play action. And play action is not going to work if you're running every single first down, because clearly the mindset was like, we're going to impose our will on the Patriots early on and we're going to grind out these yards. But all it did was just, like you said, the Jets were predictable. Nobody's really biting on play action, because how often do they even – I mean, some of his better throws in this Pats game, like the rollout to Conklin, he had a rollout to Uzama, were off play action. So they ran it a few times, but if they come out hyper aggressive and they're running play action on first down, which is, in my opinion, probably the best time to run play action, running play action on first down, throwing early, that's going to open up Brees for later in the game, because clearly he's your second best offensive player. I understand you don't want to put too much on Zach Wilson's plate, so you want to run the ball. But I think in order to run the ball, they have to throw early. You know, it's like we always look at like run the ball and that'll help free up the pass. But the way that defenses are playing Zach Wilson,
it's the opposite now.
It's the opposite.
In the league in general, but especially with this, yeah.
Right. And like Brees Hall can be your fourth quarter player. I mean, that is how this team was kind of designed, especially when they drafted Will McDonald. They're like, we think we're going to be playing with a lot of leads this year. And we have Bryce Huff, and we have this defense that takes away big plays and creates explosives of their own with sacks and takeaways. So it's like, I think you just have to run that same philosophy, but just be willing to accept that Zach Wilson's going to have a ton of turnovers and he's going to make mistakes. And that's also going to be on Zach to not mentally lose it when he starts throwing interceptions and fans are booing, because I think it's just like, I'm okay with Zach Wilson throwing 1 or 2 interceptions a game if he's able to get, 3 touchdowns on the board. I'm not saying all him, just 3 scoring drives, 4 scoring drives. And this defense is good enough to, if you do turn the ball over, to limit the damage, because they're so good on the plus side of the field. They're good at holding teams to 3. They're good at preventing big plays, and they can take the ball away themselves. So I do think you're going to see that this Sunday, a shift in mindset where it's like, hey, we have a great defense, but instead of playing defensive with this, we're going to have to play offensive and rely on this defense to help get us out of bad jams and bad situations. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing on Sunday. If they get out of there with the classic 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and I guess that's kind of Hackett's forte of like grind it out, impose ourselves physically, run the ball, and then throw, I just think you're asking for Zach Wilson to fail again. You got to get him throwing early. It'll lighten up the boxes for Brees. You can use that play action game on first, and this defense is good enough to make up for any mistakes. I think that's kind of the way they should view it.
That's a key point too, because I think that's something that they miss. An advantage of having a great defense that they don't maximize enough is the fact that, like, you don't have to win games just on the strength of the defense and not making mistakes offensively. They can also bail you out for offensive mistakes. That's another, like, that's why a lot of teams are so confident going on 4th down, is because they know, especially teams that have a good defense, is because they know if we fail, we have the defense to make the stop, get the ball back, limit the damage. It doesn't always have to be, you go for a fourth down, you miss it, you give up a touchdown, you're screwed. Like, a good defense can also be a backbone to help the offense play with the freedom to be aggressive. It doesn't always have to be, hey, offense, play extremely safe and let the defense give up 0 points to rely on them to win the game in a shutout or something. Like, they can also back you up. So that's something that they need to do more of. And I know you want to support the defense and not put them in bad situations, but they can also give you the freedom to air it out. So that's something they should do.
Yeah. And so talking about this Zach Wilson all 22, I mean, you put out some clips on Twitter that were uninspiring. I will say, I think we don't want to overestimate how much you can actually see from the pocket on the field. Like, it's very easy to watch the all 22 and be like, there's an open receiver right there. But when you look at the play pre-snap and you say, okay, what are the routes they're running? What does the defense look like pre-snap? What does the defense ultimately do? What's his process? Where are his eyes as soon as the ball is snapped? Because what I noticed watching this game is they're not having him read the full field that often. He's pretty much cutting the field in half and reading one side. And so sometimes it's like the receiver on the backside will get wide open. And it's like, okay, but that's not what he's worried about right now. He's worried about staying in rhythm, going 1, 2, 3, ball out. And those elite quarterbacks can scan the whole field or field certain things. There's a few plays we could talk about where you'd want him to realize, hey, that backside fade to Garrett Wilson's going to be open. Let me hit it. But those aren't the plays that honestly discourage me that much. There are a few other plays where it's pre-snap, where it's like, even I or Michael, who I would imagine Zach Wilson has watched hundreds of more hours of film than I and Michael. But yet,
yes.
Yeah, I don't know why I said it weird. But yet, when you look at the pre-snap, and it's like, there's one in particular, I'm trying to think of, there's a podcast, it's going to be hard to describe. It's right before, when is it? It's like in the third quarter, the play I'm about to talk about. It's like third quarter, 7 minutes to go, right before Garrett gets mad on the sidelines. The third down is the play that you posted that a lot of people got mad about, because you see Garrett gets wide open on this back shoulder fade, and the Pats are running this exotic cover 2 look, and there was a giant window for Wilson, but Zach Wilson's not looking that way. He's reading the right side of the field because of what he saw pre-snap, and there's issues with that play, but ultimately he checks down to Conklin. They have to punt, whatever, and people were mad about that play. But the play that pissed me off a lot more was the play right before that, which was a drop to Lazard. And when I watched that on the broadcast, I was like, damn it, Lazard. Like, I didn't really, when you see the broadcast, you see Zach go on his drop, back foot hits, step up, throws to Lazard, drop by Lazard. And you're like, all right, that's not on Zach. But then you see the all 22, and you just look at it, and it's like on the right side, he's got Cobb in the slot and Garrett Wilson out wide. And it's man coverage. It's single high man coverage. Even if it's cover 3, though, just on the alignment. And again, this is hard to describe on a podcast. Cobb's running a little out. And then I think it was like 2nd and 12. And Garrett from outside is running a little dig right at the sticks. And it's man coverage, off coverage. And either Cobb or Garrett is going to be open on that play, just based off of how they're lined. Because either that linebacker is going to have to go cover the flat, in which case Garrett's going to be open, or that linebacker is going to gain depth and somebody else is going to be tasked with the flat. And if that's the case, Cobb's going to be open. So just pre-snap, and I don't know the rules. I don't know what they're telling Zach in the year, whatever. Pre-snap to me, that's like, I don't even care about the left side of the field. This is free yards to set up a 3rd and short or get a first down to Garrett here. And yet he's reading the left side of the field where there's a corner, there's 2 safeties, a linebacker, all sorts of congestion. The box safety comes underneath, and he's throwing to double coverage to Lazard. And it's like, the process from post-snap is fine there from Zach, and the ball placement's good. But pre-snap, you're like, why is he reading the left side of the field? And that happened all game. There were a number of times where he's ignoring Garrett. So I don't want to go on for too much of a tangent here, but kind of what'd you make of the all 22? And we can start with some of the pre-snap errors where it's like, we're not football geniuses here, but like, this seems fairly rudimentary. Like, I'm pretty lenient when I'm grading him. I try to be as optimistic as possible here. And it's like, that play pissed me off probably more than any other play in the entire game.
Well, yeah, I think, first of all, it's important to know exactly what you said when you started describing this, is the fact that just because you see a guy open on the tape and you're looking at the all 22, it doesn't always mean the quarterback should hit him, because it's not Madden. I mean, even though Bryce Petty tried to get good by playing it, it doesn't mean that it applies to the real game, because we underestimate how hard it is to see things back there. You can only really read probably half the field at once. You got 6'5" guys in front of you, so they don't have eyes in the back of their head. they have progressions they need to go through, which we don't always know exactly what those progressions are. So just because there's a guy open, it doesn't always mean that guy should be hit on that particular play, considering the circumstances. And with the plays I put up, some of them might be excusable, some of them not. I just wanted to post. I was just going through it, and I put up everything that I thought was interesting, and like I, for the most part, let people kind of decide what they want to think. But for the most part, I did think the majority of them were clearly mistakes. Some of them debatable, but yeah, that's always important to keep in mind. But I agree with you. One of the biggest issues is not necessarily seeing things and failing to throw to it. It's more so he's not getting to them because of the pre-snap decisions. And this one play you laid out is a really good one. I pulled it up here so I could look at it and kind of describe what we were seeing. So it's 2nd and 13, and it's the third quarter. They're still down by 10 in this situation. But yeah, like some of the pre-snap decisions just don't make sense because on this play, he's got to his left side Lazard and Conklin. Lazard's outside, Conklin's in line. He's got Hall to his left as well. So that brings a linebacker over there. So there's a lot of traffic on this side of the field. You got 2 linebackers over here, plus 2 defenders on Conklin and Lazard. So that's a lot of traffic. And then what you're talking about on the other side, you got Cobb in the slot. He's going into the flat towards the sideline. And then you got Garrett Wilson running a little dig. And both of them are one-on-one with the guy across from them. There's no extra traffic other than a safety who was way 20-plus yards down the field. So that side to me seems a lot more, again, we're not in the huddle. We don't know the reads. We're not in the NFL. We're sitting here doing a podcast. Zach Wilson's the same age as us, a year older, and he's out there in the field. So what do we know? With that being said, the way the play plays out, it clearly was a better decision because Garrett Wilson is there. They play man-to-man. Cobb takes his guy into the flat. Wilson's got a big cushion. He runs the dig, and he is open for maybe not first down, but would be just short of it on 2nd and 13. So there's stuff like that where he's just not, doesn't seem like he's picking the right side. That leads to him missing a play because he's not where you want him to be in terms of the progression. And then I think there are also some plays like the third down that comes after this where he checked it down to Conklin. Garrett Wilson was wide open on that fade. And it seems like that was the play he was complaining about. That viral clip, everyone saw it on CBS where he was yelling on the sideline, Hackett at the tablet. Plays like that are different because the decision makes sense because on this play, he's not looking at Garrett when he breaks wide open on that fade. He starts on Randall Cobb's side because the pre-snap looks like cover 0. They've got the box stacked. There's 8 potential rushers, and then it's man-to-man on 3 receivers. But give Belichick credit. He does a crazy exotic look here, and they drop into cover 2 out of that. So based on what Zach saw pre-snap, you think it's cover 0. Randall Cobb's got a seam route here. He would be wide open if that's what they run.
If that's Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, especially if that's Mecole Hardman. So that's another problem we can get into. But it's Randall Cobb, and even Cobb would probably be open if this was 0, which, based on the way they're lined up, there's a good chance they're going to do that. But Bill Belichick is a crazy man against the Jets. He knows he can do anything, and they go into cover 2 out of this, which is wild. I personally don't see that a lot. Starting on that side, fine, makes sense. But for me, like where the problem comes in is that he should be able to read that quickly enough and understand, okay, this is denied. They rotated into something different. It's not 0 like I thought. Let me get to my backside with Garrett Wilson. That should be there based on this look. So I think there are some things like that where he's also struggling.
But does that really align with what we've been asking him to do? We're still grading him on the number 2 overall pick scale where it's like we just said last week. Last week we said we just want 20th. Not really. I mean,
any quarterback should be able to do that. Like, how many plays are we going to look at here and say, okay, it's just they didn't get the right look against the coverage they wanted.
And I know, but that specific play.
It's fine. 3rd and 13, they've only got 3 options here open. Like, why is it okay to throw a check down to Conklin when someone's wide open on the other side?
If that's Hardman, I feel like they have a better chance. We can get into that, like you said. But he looks at Hardman, covered. He looks at Lazard, covered. He dumps it off to Conklin. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe a better quarterback like the one the Jets are going to face Sunday can feel the rotation, and he does, like we said, he doesn't have eyes in the back of his head and can dump it off backside to Wilson, who's open. But it's like I watched that play, and it's like, okay, you can criticize it. Obviously not great quarterback play, but there are about 10 other plays that are a lot more rudimentary and a lot more are going to make the difference between the Jets winning and losing a lot more games than that type of play. That type of play is an above and beyond quarterback play for me in terms of like, what are they asking him to do? And it's not for him to get through 4 or 5 reads and hit the backside. It's like they're splitting the field in half. They're trying to make it as simple as possible for him. There's a lot to criticize there, but it's like I watch this game and I see he's in, and I'm going to sound like the biggest Zach apologist, but I'm just trying to be fair. It's like every single time they ask him to throw, it's 3rd or 8 or longer. And then you see a lot of hesitancy and him not wanting to make a mistake. I just don't feel like it's a winning formula. And like the play right before that, to me, was the worst play because that's like rudimentary football pre-snap. You should see that one-on-one. Even if it's cover 3, even if it's zone or it's another exotic look, Cobb would be open. So regardless, he had to read that pre-snap. And there's even like the play that you tweeted out, like, and I don't know necessarily who this is on. It was the second play of the game where he flips the run to the right. Now, somebody replied to you and so, I want to be fair here. But on the broadcast, you can hear him yelling "Yellow Wanda," which is, and then McGovern goes like, "No, Red Wanda." Which if we're gonna decipher that, I guess that's run left or run right. And McGovern's like, "No, Red Wanda," and then Zach flips it. Okay, Red Wanda. They run right. It's a -5 yard play. And so you look at that and you're like, what did he see pre-snap to flip it to the right? And so that to me is a lot more concerning. Even if that one's on McGovern, there's examples all over the game where it's like he's reading the wrong side of the field. And that's more concerning than him not feeling the backside Garrett getting open against this exotic rotating coverage,
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you can take your pick in terms of which mistakes you think are the worst, but the bottom line is that there's a lot of them and there are plays to be made that aren't being made. So, yeah, he's holding the team back a lot, but this is what they got right now. This is his last shot. It feels like potentially to show them that he deserves to keep the job going forward. And if he's going to do that, and if they're going to have a chance to win, they have to, just let him rip and not give him these type of reads where it's like, hey, check deep. If it's not there, check it down, because it's just safe football. And if it didn't work against the Patriots, it's not going to work against the Chiefs, and it's not going to work against most teams. So they need to just give him the freedom to play. And if it leads to 3 picks and he can't win a game in that fashion either, which I don't believe he can because he's had plenty of time to show it, but if that happens, then you have your answer. It's time to move on to T-Money Wiggle, as he's called.
Yeah, so why is that his nickname on Pro Football Reference? What is that about?
I was looking it up. I think there was some play with the Broncos. Some teammate called him. I don't know. I'd have to do further research, but he's got 3 really good nicknames. There's T-Money Wiggle, there's T-Money Sizzle, and there's T-Dot. So you got 3 great nicknames there.
I like T-Money
I don't think
Wiggle.
Zach Wilson has any nicknames, so that proves Trevor
Hunter.
is there.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
that's true. That's true. That's not appropriate for Pro Football Reference, though.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, the only other positive, nobody wants to hear positives, is his ball placement and accuracy is definitely better than last year, which is the only reason I think I feel any sort of like, all right, maybe we'll see a good Zach Wilson game this year if they just let him throw on first down. Because last year it felt like, well, you don't want that guy throwing at all because he can't at all. This year the accuracy's been good. It's just, I think you just have to be willing to live with some of the mistakes. It kind of felt like week 1, they started to open it up. They were letting him throw, and then he threw that pick to Milano, and then immediately after that, they had no confidence. The rest of that game, it was just run. They put nothing on his shoulders. And then last week against Dallas, or 2 weeks ago or whatever, against Dallas, kind of a similar game plan they had against New England, which is they want to run on first down. They want to establish themselves on the ground. They want to be a run-first defensive ball club, but I just don't think you can win football games if you don't have that 2009 Jets offensive line or in today's NFL. I think they just felt like he didn't have the internal clock when he first came to the NFL because his offensive line was so good at BYU, and you can see they've clearly coached into him. That's like, 1, 2, check down. Like they're making it really simple for him to read one side of the field, go through 2 reads, and get to the check down. I mean, even the offense, if you watch, it's like a lot of times the tight end and Randall Cobb, who's playing a lot more than Miko Hardman, a lot of times they're just running like clear out routes. They're not even running real routes that Zach is really even targeting. Most of the targets are going towards Garrett or Lazard, and he has, or the check down, but But it's like most plays that you watch, it's like, why is he zombing so much? And it's like I watch him when he's running routes. A lot of times it's just to, clear up space or take a defender out against man coverage. And it's the same thing with Randall Cobb. Or they'll have the tight end or the running back stand, chip, and then get open for the check down. And it's like, I think that's other issues with this offense too, where it's like, if you put a guy like Hardman in there, it's like I feel like he has another option to get to. They're simplifying things so much to the point where it's like there's really only a receiver or two it can go to on this play, and then it's check down time. And it's also they try to drill into him that he can go, he has the legs to scramble. But the problem with that, especially in this Pats game, is when you rely on that ability too much and the Pats try to make you play from the pocket, you just see it wreck plays. Like 3 or 4 times, he just takes his eyes off downfield and it wrecks plays. So I don't know. I think it's mindset and philosophy. And like, look, like this is, it's hard not to sound like a Zach Wilson apologist if you're going to try to be any level of optimistic. This is clearly not the situation any of us wanted to be in week 4 with this team. I'm just saying, like, only chance they have, I think, is to just be aggressive with Zach on first down. I think that'll open up their play action game. They got the defense to survive it. You've seen some strides, not good enough, but the way they're playing in this safe mindset, they're not going to win. They'll win 4 games all year. So I just don't think that's who Zach Wilson is. Maybe with Trevor Siemian, you can play that mindset. But even then, I don't think you have the offensive line to be able to run against stacked boxes like that. So I don't know. That was a lot on Zach. Do you have anything else on the all-22? I guess new offensive line. Your thoughts on Hackett using the personnel we kind of alluded to earlier?
I thought the new offensive line was pretty good for the most part. I mean, the run game is hard to evaluate because it was so unfavorable down to down. Like, there were a lot of plays where you look at the blocks individually, like, this looks pretty good, but then the run gets stuffed because there's just one more guy than they can block. Then you also have plays like the one you mentioned where they're just checking into a run where Breece Hall loses 6 yards immediately, even though everyone hits their block because they're just outnumbered. So kind of hard to evaluate the run game, but pass protection I thought was pretty solid. I mean, for the most part, the pockets were clean, and any supposed pressure that came wasn't there until Zach held onto the ball too long and started to make things happen. But AVT at right tackle, starting to buy into that. I mean, I've been an advocate of keeping him at right guard. That's his best position, but this is 4 games now. I mean, one of them he didn't play too much before he went out, but 4 starts now right tackle. No sacks, no hits, only 3 hurries for him. He only had 1 allowed in this game. So he looks really good in pass protection out there because just the quickness and athleticism he has against the type of rushers you face out there. Like in this game, he faced Judon, he faced Josh Uche, who's basically the Patriots version of Bryce Huff. He's one of the best situational rushers right up there with him. 2 really fast guys, and he just has the quickness to stick with them that a lot of tackles don't have. So that kind of makes up for his lack of length. So the pass protection for AVT at right tackle is really inspiring. I thought Tippmann was
better
really
than
good.
It was inside.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, I think you hope the run blocking ceiling, or you would think it's higher at guard. That's the appeal of playing him there, but he was having some struggles in pass protection the first 2 games. Obviously, most notably on the play that cost them a touchdown at the end of the first half of the Cowboys game. So and even last year, a guard didn't start the season the greatest. So I think we're starting to see that it's pretty clear his pass protection is better at tackle. And I don't think the run blocking is, I do think it's a downgrade, but not enough to cancel out the tackle or the pass protection. So maybe that's his spot. We'll see going forward if that's what they want to do. But I'm starting to buy in. We need to see more games, but it's looking good. I thought Tippmann was really good in pass protection. He was credited with no pressures allowed. There was the holding he took at the end, but he got tripped in that play, and he just took it to prevent what probably would have been a sack. But other than that, I mean, really good recognition. The Patriots threw a lot at him, a lot of complex pressure schemes. We had edge defenders looping inside. We had all kinds of blitzes, showing blitzes and dropping, a lot of creative stuff in the A gaps. And he was picking up a lot of it for the most part. I mean, really no big mistakes from him. I thought Becton was okay at left tackle. He did lose a couple. He obviously, he did have a tough job in this game because, you know, Jets were holding the ball for a long time. He had to win a lot of one-on-ones for extended periods, and for the most part, he held up. Just a couple of mistakes in key spots, but he wasn't getting consistently dominated. But I do want to see more still from Tomlinson and McGovern, especially Lakin. I mean, the bounce back year we were hoping for, I don't think we're seeing it. In this game, I feel like he got bull rushed a lot and was in Zach's lap
I'd rather
quite
see
a bit.
Schweitzer.
So it's just not happening. So Schweitzer, I agree, is the move when he's healthy, which I'm pretty sure he didn't practice today. I have to double check that, but once he's back, it's time to start thinking about making that change because I don't care how much money he's getting paid or how supposedly good of a locker room guy he is. The performance just isn't there. It's not happening. So, yeah, I would consider making that move soon. Is that something you would do as soon as Schweitzer's ready?
Yeah, but I think they'll probably wait for an injury or see what happens with McGovern because I think they're paying Lakin so much money, and I think also they want to develop that continuity and chemistry between a single offensive line unit. And it's like Lakin hasn't been great, but he's got back
What
to
do you
next
think
gen.
of? Do you remember when Rodgers said essentially that he thinks the whole offensive line chemistry thing is overrated at the end of the offseason? Do you agree with that? Do you think there's something to what he was saying there? I'd have to pull up that quote, but I know he said something along those lines.
Maybe overrated, especially for the tackles. But I think on the interior, it's definitely important in terms of like handling stunts. It feels like a lot of interior pressure comes from miscommunications. So, I don't know if that's as much chemistry or coaching, but I would imagine that the same unit playing next to each other over the course of a season, they would probably get better, but because they would see the same stuff more often and have that experience. But I could see what he's saying. Like, it's not, at the end of the day, like a lot of it comes down to winning your one-on-one matchups. And so if you're not doing that, it doesn't matter if you have continuity. And Lakin seems to lose a lot of his one-on-one matchups. So, but at the end of the day, he is also getting paid like $17 million. So I think it's going to take a lot to get him on the bench. What do you make of the rest of the personnel usage and kind of like what other changes they could make offensively heading into this Chiefs game? Because I think a lot of us have been talking about get McCall Hardman on the field. I keep calling him Mecole. Get McCall Hardman on the field. Get Xavier Gibson on the field. More Ruckert. Banish Dalvin Cook to the inactive list and bring up Banacanda. Like, there's all these personnel changes we want to make, but what do you think are the most realistic for this Sunday? And then also philosophically, I mean, we've talked about the obvious stuff of like running more on first down or passing more on first down, and that'll open up the play action game. But like, I don't see enough pre-snap motion. I don't see any of those design touches that I think you could give. I think you could give Xavier Gibson 3 or 4 design touches every game on offense that are, I feel pretty good about being positive yards. So what are some of the things that you would want to see, I guess, offensively on Sunday if they do open up the playbook?
I mean, some of the personnel changes just feel obvious at this point based on the performances they're getting from other guys, and it's baffling why they're not making them, especially Rucker going down to 1 snap in this game after the way he played in those first 2 games, making the most of his reps. It just didn't make any sense, especially if you put out this supposed mission of wanting to run the ball. And like Saleh used that as one of his excuses for not playing Hardman, that, one of the things he said is that whether we're using 13 personnel, getting 3 tight ends out there, you didn't do that. You played in 1 snap, so you're making things up. So like, I don't get that at all. And to be fair, and you and I both realize this, Uzama did his job in this game. He wasn't bad in this game. He had a pretty solid blocking game, a rare one. It doesn't make up for the whole body of work to this point, but credit where it's due. I was looking for clips because I want to back up what I'm saying with some film, but wasn't there in this one. He did his job, so it doesn't change the fact that Ruckert has been awesome when he's been out there, and he has way more pass catching upside than Uzama does, who's still running routes in the slot and on the outside, despite having no ability or any reason to be doing that at all.
Well,
So
it
we
really
still need more
sinks the
Ruckert.
offense when they have Cobb and Uzama out there, and they even had
Yeah,
the holy grail. They had Dalvin Cook, Uzama, and Randall Cobb out there on one of these plays, and I was just like, Jesus, what a
that's
wasted
another
rep.
thing you and I mentioned when we were just watching through this film play to play. It's like the team speed suffers from those guys. I know Uzama's maybe he's decently fast with the ball in his hands, but as a route runner, he's probably the stockiest, most slow-footed route runner in the entire league. I mean, other tight ends are
Yeah.
like that too, but just for a guy who you're putting in that position, it's
We
just
watched Kellen
not the
Davis.
requisite level. Yeah, it's like no one's threatened by that at all. It doesn't change anything. And then watching Cobb, some of the routes that he's running, because like you said, a lot of what they're asking him to do is clear outs down the field, whether he's running a crosser or just going vertical, and like the speed is not there. And you feel like if Hardman were in those shoes, be more of a threat and demand more respect. And even in some situations, maybe have enough speed to separate a little bit and be an option. But Cobb doesn't have that, so it does not make sense at all, especially when he's dropping easy passes. He dropped a very, very easy 4-yard pass in this game. He can't block. He missed a block on a screen to Garrett Wilson that cost him a lot of yards. There was a lane there for maybe a touchdown of about 50 yards because Lazard had a really good block, who, by the way, has been blocking really well this season. He's lived up to that. So Cobb's bringing nothing to the table, and it just feels like Hardman, even if maybe you worry about his route running, his drops, whatever, just the fact that he is significantly faster than Cobb, you're probably talking about the top of the line versus the bottom among receivers, changes everything about how defenses are going to play him and should open up other things for the offense and the run game as well. Just having that motion threat, a guy who defenses are going to react to, can open up lanes for a run game that needs all the help it can get with the way that defenses are playing. So it's just so hard to understand why they're not doing it. And they give these reasons in press conferences that are clearly just cliche cop outs. They don't believe what they're saying. Like Hackett came out again today and he said, essentially they didn't have enough plays to get Hardman and Ruckert out there, which he doesn't believe that. That's not the real reason. Whatever the real reason is, they don't feel confident saying it to the public. They don't want to say it to the public. Maybe it's because they struggle in practice
They're
or they
messing up the
don't
finer
think they.
details.
Yeah, the finer details.
Here's
It's probably something like
you want
that.
an underrated
But
guess?
sure.
I think that a lot of this offense, and this is again maybe a criticism of the Jets coaching staff in the wake of not being able to adjust after Rodgers going down. I think a lot of the offense was designed with Corey Davis out there as well. I think they wanted to have kind of two physical blocking receivers. I could be wrong, but when you see what a lot of what Cobb is tasked to do, and again, we don't know what this offense would have looked like to its fullest potential with Aaron Rodgers. And look, they've had 5 weeks since Davis, 6 weeks since Davis retired, so they've had plenty of time to adjust. But that's the only thing I can think of is like Cobb brings you blocking, the veteran can clear out routes. Because the thing I would want to do is I'd want to see more Lazard in the slot and more Hardman outside, and you could task Lazard with doing some of those clear outs because he has the size and physicality to do it. And then also a lot of times it's like, Cobb might do the clear out and then he's kind of open over the middle, but it's like, are you really trying to throw that, clearing a second level defender to hit it to Randall Cobb? It's like, but you have a big 6'5" receiver out there over the middle. That's a lot easier of a throw to hit. But then you do that. Do you sacrifice some of the run blocking with Hardman out there? I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is like they plan to have Davis and Lazard out there. And so that's why they're playing more Randall Cobb than Mecole Hardman, Jesus. But it's not really an excuse. It's just trying to rationalize it.
Yeah, it's probably something like that where it's like in practice, the veteran guys show better understanding of the offense, whether it's in the film room or just executing in practice, something like that. I'm sure that's what it is.
Hardman does a great job on a clear out, though. It's only 2 reps, and both of them were clear outs, and both times he did a good job.
Yeah, he did exactly what we're talking about. Like the 2 reps he played just showed the impact that his speed has. The way the one play he carried both the safety and the guy who was covering man to man, just totally cleared him out, and there was space underneath. And then Salah that was another ridiculous excuse he made. He said, "Yeah, well, we tried to get him out there early versus New England, but didn't go the way we wanted to." He's out there for 2 plays. How can you make that judgment?
He did a good job on both plays.
So what are you talking about? So yeah, it's probably something like that on the practice field where the finer details, but it's just hard to buy into that when we're watching the games and the guys who are playing ahead of them, they're not doing those things either. Uzama's blocking has been bad for the most part. Again, given this game, whatever, but the first 2 games were terrible. And then Cobb is dropping easy passes, and when has he been open. Aside for, there were a couple plays where Zach missed them, but for the most part, those were plays that were, the one was a blown coverage, like the corner route he was open on. The other one where he's open over the middle, you give him credit for that, but it was a really favorable route, like just a one-on-one. He's just running a slant or a drag, whatever, over the middle. I think Gibson or Hardman would separate in the same situation. So other than that, he hasn't really been open. So where are we seeing those things come into play for him?
I remember the specific play, but they also had him run a 9 route from the outside. And I'm like, what corner is threatened by Randall Cobb on this deep route? And I'm trying to remember the exact play because it did affect, because it was in essence another clear out route, but it did affect. I'm trying to remember. Damn it, I can't remember the exact play. But anyways, it did affect the play. Like if you had more speed there and Hardman's able to draw the corner of the safety deeper, I think it opened up like a crossing route. But because Cobb takes 10 seconds to run 30 yards, and also he's on my shit list for dropping that Hail Mary, which is funny just to think how the entire narrative of the game would have changed with nothing changing at all.
That's what's so funny about football. He catches that pass and it's like Zach Wilson leads the Jets over the Patriots. The resiliency, he'd have like 220 yards or whatever to get like 50 on that play.
2 dimes back to back.
Yeah, the touchdown pass in there. So it's hilarious how much. And then Cobb's a hero all of a sudden. We're like, oh, that's why he's playing, because he learned that playing with Rodgers. The whole narrative changes. Like I for a second thought he had it because the angle on TV was like it was blocked for a second by somebody and you couldn't see it. So you're like, someone must have it. And you saw Cobb right there. So that would have been crazy, but they didn't deserve to have that. But I think the real reason these guys are playing, you pointed this out to me on one of the plays. I think it was when Conklin made that catch. Yeah. You see Uzama on the sideline. He just does like a first down celebration, like rotates his arms, like this very precise, cool looking celebration. That's a Hackett guy right there. God. So I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, the coaches, because like these guys, they aren't idiots. Like they have these jobs for a reason. So I try to give them the benefit of the doubt that there's a real reason they're making these decisions that we're just not getting, us peasants out here who don't understand anything. But the more you watch the games and you just see the way that things are going, it's hard to see any other reason for it besides they just like these guys. They're the veterans. They're the cool guys in the room. Anything besides that, it's just hard to see any real reasoning. And I think that's why they don't give you the reasons when they say it in the press conference, because they don't want to come out and say, these are the vets, so we're playing them. We're paying them the most money. They have the most experience. They're playing. So that's probably the real reason, and you would understand why they don't want to say that. Because anything other than that, football-wise, is just not justified by what we're seeing on the film every week.
All right, let's talk about the defense here, and with an eye towards KC.
Oh, there's a defense?
Yeah, I know. We spent an hour in the offense. With an eye towards KC, so I guess we can focus in on KC. If there's anything from the L22 that you saw, feel free to throw it in. But I definitely think the big key for this week is going to be third down. And that's been a tough down for the Jets the last 2 weeks. They have not been able to get off the field. Overall, I mean, more so last week, the Dallas game, I wouldn't say I don't think you can classify that as a good defensive performance, even though they did hold things together in the second half a little bit better. But last week was a good defensive performance, but underwhelming on third down and underwhelming with the pass rush. The Pats did a good job of, chipping, going max protect, getting the ball out quick, doing things to kind of mitigate that pass rush. But I think this Sunday against the Chiefs, I mean, it's the reason the Jets run this defense is because you can beat top-level quarterbacks if you can win with 4 and you could drop everybody into coverage. I would expect a lot of zone. I mean, I'm curious to see how much man they use. I was reading that, both the Lions and the Jaguars, who did a nice job stifling this Chiefs offense, played a ton of zone, more zone than the Chiefs saw last year outside of I think 2 games where they faced a ton of man coverage. I am curious to see how much man they would go with because I think these Jets corners are better than all the Chiefs weapons, Travis Kelce excluded, although, hey, you have a guy in Sauce Gardner who has the size to match up one-on-one with these tight ends. I think this is, I know they last week they're like, we're not going to have, or 2 weeks ago, we're not going to have Sauce travel with any team's top receiver. That's just not how our defense works. It's like, I don't anticipate it early on, but I'm just saying if Travis Kelce with Taylor Swift in the house is going off, I'm not afraid of Sky Moore or Rashee Rice or Kadarius Toney if he plays. It's Travis Kelce. It's the Travis Kelce show every week in KC. Might as well put your best defensive player, or arguably your best defensive player, one-on-one with Kelsey. He has the ability to shut down tight ends. I don't know, food for thought. But third down, anyways, is the money down for this team, and they got to get some pressure on Mahomes. Michael, I'll go to you first. What are some matchups you're keeping an eye on? Do you think we're going to see the manned up Sauce on Kelsey matchup, or is that just going to be one of those things where if he finds his himself in Sauce's zone, we'll see it, but otherwise he's just going to pick on Whitehead and Amos all day?
I think there's a chance because we haven't really seen the Jets play this type of tight end since last year. The only time they did was when they played Mark Andrews in his debut, and we saw some of that with the one-on-one matchups against a big-time tight end. Other than that, who was the best tight end they played last year? The only tight ends who are in that tier are probably Andrews, Kittle, and Kelsey. Maybe Kyle Pitts has that talent, but he's not really used that way. But regardless, they haven't faced those guys, so I think this is a chance to return to that. And it would make a lot of sense because I think you take DJ Reed and Michael Carter II, even throw Brandon Echols in there against these Chiefs receivers all day and just trust Gardner to stick with Travis Kelce, because anyone who's watched the Chiefs, which everyone by this point has watched plenty of them the past few years, most of Kelce's catches are just him being on the same page with Mahomes and finding places to sit down in the zone. And obviously he can win man-to-man too. That's part of why he's so amazing. But a good chunk of his production is just those type of catches that always make my dad say, how is he always so wide open? Why do they not even cover him? And, just because they have that communication, and he's so smart at finding those holes in the zone. So you just don't want to play soft like that against this team, I feel like. And it plays with the offensive mentality too. Like, if we're going to take some chances, because look, Jets have to be honest and realize that they're underdogs in this game. They need to make big things happen to win this. So I think in coordination with that offensive strategy,
bring out the fake punts,
play aggressive, bring out the fake punts, which I loved it when they did it.
Onside kicks,
against the Cowboys,
kitchen sink.
But yeah, defense, like, play some man coverage, and I'm not saying blitz Mahomes because that's kind of proven to not work. But work. Put some man coverage out there, mix it up, and throw some different looks that they haven't seen before, because this is a really good offensive line too, and this is the type of, like we talked about going into the season. I think the teams that the Jets defense struggles more against are teams that have the O-line to protect their 4-man rush. So the Eagles in a couple of weeks, and I think another one, because they have a really, really good offensive line. And, again, I'm not saying blitz, but you just throw different coverage schemes out there, different looks. It could buy your pass rush some more time.
Give us a healthy dose of Bryce Huff, please. I want a lot of Bryce Huff in this game. Yeah. Hell, even more Will McDonald. A little less Carl Lawson, a little less JJ on passing downs. I'm really throwing the pass rush and kitchen sink here. The thing I would expect KC to do, which you saw Dallas do a little bit, but it just seems like such an Andy Reid thing to do in this game, is go up tempo, even early. I think that's one way to kind of exploit this Jets style of defense, this all gas, no break style of defense. It also doesn't allow the Jets to rotate their pass rushers, especially if the Jets offense is doing nothing and it's 3 and outs and this defense is back on the field. I would really expect KC to come out and push the pace and just try to just tire this Jets defense out and have them have one of those games where they have, 85, 90 plays like they did against Dallas.
Moment you get the Al Woods defensive line on the field, just hurry up the rest of the way and you're going to score.
Exactly. This is really going to come down to defensively is, can they force Mahomes to make the mistakes like they did Allen? Can they create those big plays? I think Mahomes, more so than Allen, is willing to take the underneath stuff, because that's what the Jets are going to do. It's what Saleh did to him in the Super Bowl up until he had that big completion to Tyreek Hill, is take away the big explosives. That's what KC's known for, is you see the highlights of the 60-yard touchdowns. Take away those big plays and force Patrick Mahomes to play boring football from within the pocket. Problem is I think Mahomes has shown that he will do that, more so than Josh Allen. He'll, like you said, Travis Kelce's so good at finding the holes in the zone. He will do that. He'll go underneath the Kelce. He'll throw to his running backs. He'll scramble for yards. And I think you're going to see a boring style of play from KC, of quick passes, methodically working their way up and down the field, slow, long drives. And it's going to be on the Jets to hold them to 3 because the Chiefs are going to get the yards. They're going to be in field goal range. Hold them to 3. But it's also going to be, they're going to have to create some turnovers. They're going to have to force some fumbles or force Mahomes into a mistake, or create a big sack to put Kansas City in that 3rd and 15 where they can bring Huff and McDonald in. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to is if they limit the big plays, I think they'll keep him in this game because I do like the matchup with the secondary against these Chiefs weapons. Like you said, this is a good KC offensive line, and that's typically the type of offenses that this Jets defense can struggle with. Case in point, Dallas week 2. But I think heavy dose of Bryce Huff, heavy dose of Will McDonald, maybe a little sauce on Kelsey action. And Mahomes has struggled against the zone the first 2 weeks. So, I mean, they dominated the Bears last week. So, I mean, I'm not too optimistic about their chances. But are there any other matchups you're kind of keeping an eye on the offensive line or anything like that? I mean, I think interesting that you mentioned they could go with the dime package, bring Eccles out there, and then man up Sauce one-on-one with Kelsey. Yeah. I'm just trying to give you time to think. Is there anything on the D-line, O-line that you're looking at? Or?
Oh, yeah, there's definitely – I mean, Quinnen against Joe Thuney is going to be great because they'll match up a lot with Quinnen. I mean, great to watch if you like football. I mean, it's just you don't.
It's all pain. All pain and suffering. I don't even like it anymore. I don't even enjoy it. I don't really enjoy other football games, if I'm being honest.
But they're nothing to add there. When was he a free agent? 2
years ago.
I mean, yeah, weren't the Jets rumored to sign him, or we wanted to sign him, or whatever?
Yes.
But anyway, that'll be a good
signed
matchup
with the Super Bowl contending Kansas City Chiefs. What the hell? What a bad move.
Yeah, I mean, why would you want to go there instead of the Jets? Like, you want to take the challenge and get more legacy points.
Build the wall.
That
wall is looking so sad right now. Maybe they should stop decorating the wall if they keep losing. Week 1's wall looks sick.
Are you going to keep going? Like,
yeah, they keep putting up photos. What photos do they even put up for?
You lose every single game? Like, what picture do you think they put up for the last one? Probably some random tackle with Mosley and Quincy Williams.
Yes, defensive stuff. Maybe Nick Bawden's touchdown.
So, I mean, what do you think of Salah's mantras? Too many?
I like Salah.
I feel like he has too many.
I like Salah.
He had a new one like last week. What was the one with Garrett Wilson? He was like, he had
each other's
a shirt or something. It was like,
we have each other's backs or something like that, or we got each other or something like that.
I think their mantras are good, but he just says too many. It feels like.
What do you think about the hot seat stuff we've been seeing about Salah? I mean, I think there's no chance he gets fired this year because I think he's tied to Rodgers. So, at the very least, he's here next year, and we get the Rodgers experience, and then we see what happens. But you could criticize some of the moves they've made. You can criticize not having a better plan in place if Rodgers went down, not bringing in another backup quarterback. But I think the 2022 draft class and then luring in Aaron Rodgers buys them some time. But I will say, assuming they change the uniforms, we're going to look back on these uniforms as like the saddest era of Jets football ever. I mean, just like mono Gase year 1. Then you have the blowing the tank for Trevor, year 2. Year 3, you have rookie Zach, worst defense in football. Last year, you have, collapse. Zach looks like a bust. And then this year, you have Rodgers popping his Achilles. I mean, what a era for this Jets uniforms. I mean, Jesus, what a rough 5-season run. Hey, we'll see how it ends. Maybe Zach Wilson leads them on a magical playoff berth, but geez, I can't wait for them to get out of these unis. Yeah. And then 20 years, people are going to be calling for these throwbacks. Let's get the Gase throwbacks.
Gase throwback. But at least we're going to these 80s uniforms. That was a very successful era.
We'll see him again this Sunday.
Championships there. I mean, they had some good years, but I mean, like I was talking to your dad about why he doesn't he's not as big of a fan as other people, and it's because he associates it with some of the bad years they had in those uniforms. So it's not like there's really the best era is. I mean, obviously they won the Super Bowl in those Namath uniforms, but that is basically the same uniform as the one they brought back in '98.
All right, reel it in. This is too early for the uniform talk.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let's get.
Let's go.
Back
on topic.
Yeah, back on topic.
Salah.
Yeah, Salah. Keep Mahomes in pocket.
I mean, I'm willing to still give him a chance with Rodgers next year because he's going to stay. Definitely seems like Rodgers likes him and Salah was a big part of why he was willing to come to the Jets. So I think he's going to get that chance, and I'm willing to give it to him. I mean, not to fully excuse this year just because one player gets hurt, but it's we all watch this team. We know how close they are to being a playoff championship caliber team, and it's just quarterback has really held them back, and there's only so much he can do about it. In terms of the lack of a fallback plan, that's more so on, and we don't know how much Salah plays into this. Maybe he does have a big hand in it, but that's more on Douglas, I think, for not getting someone in March when they could have had Bridgewater, Minshew, Dalton, re-signed Mike White, like actual good backups. So that's probably more on him. I don't love the answers in the press conferences, but honestly, I don't care about that at all. It has nothing to do with winning. So I don't know. I think players seem to really like him. I don't think the team has any issues with playing hard. And also, people love to criticize coaching when the team commits penalties. I think they're one of the lowest in penalties this year, so you can give them that for the discipline. So I don't know. I don't have too much of a problem with him right now. It's never fun when you lose. The answers are never going to be fun to listen to, but what is he going to do? The only thing that kind of question is I wonder if he cares, and just the regime in general cares a little bit too much about culture and locker room versus winning, because some of those on-field moves with personnel, like Uzama playing a lot, like Cobb, it's like we said, it's kind of hard to find any reason other than those are our veterans as to why they're playing. Because on field it's hard to see the reasons why. So
right.
I wonder if they are valuing that a little bit too much over actual on-field talent, because as important as culture is, I think winning leads to a good culture much more so than a good culture leads to winning. And that's something that I think teams miss sometimes. So I do wonder if maybe he's a little too culture leaning, if that's getting in the way of making moves that go towards winning. Maybe
I don't know.
you
I think that's a
disagree,
tough
but
criticism. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, we don't see him in terms of like the position coaches. I've always wondered like how critical are they in terms of like he's very much on positive reinforcement. But it's like, okay, yeah, but you got to tell Al Woods when he's fucking up a certain player. You know what I mean? Like, how critical are they as coaches? I think you saw a little bit.
Hard Knocks did
That's what I'm
give some.
saying.
Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah, like you kind of
They
saw a
gave
little
us
bit
some
more.
reference
The
in that
position
area.
coaches are a lot tougher, and Salah had a few tougher speeches on the team. So I don't know. I mean, look, I make fun of the uniform era, but that's the Joe Douglas era, and it's like at the end of the day, it's a results driven business. I think that historic 2022 class and Lauren Rodgers buys Douglas at least 2024. But I think the Jets, the one thing the Jets have we know doesn't work is constantly firing coaches, constantly firing general managers. I think we felt like, okay, we have some sort of stability the last few years of bringing this organization out of the mud. But at the end of the day, it's like there's still some mistakes being made, and they should have had a better contingency plan for Rodgers. We'll see what it looks like this Sunday. Oh, God damn, it's week 4. What are we fucking doing? This was not the season we were supposed to be having, Michael. Offense. I mean, we've kind of covered it already, but I think it just sounds like I'm selling a bill of goods if I come on here and be like, I'm optimistic about Zach Wilson this week, and then for him to just go out there and just shit the bed. But I have a feeling this is going to be the best Zach Wilson we get. I'm not saying the Jets are going to win this game or that it'll even be amazing, but I think we're going to get a good Zach Wilson performance here simply by virtue. I think they're just going to have to be throwing. I think the pressure isn't really on. I mean, I guess actually, how do you feel about that? It's like the Jets aren't expected to win this game. They're going to throw early. But again, this is Sunday Night Football. The Boo Birds are going to come out, although maybe not. Maybe the Taylor Swift, positivity is in the stands. Chiefs fans aren't going to be booing as easily. But it's like, how do you feel about the pressure on Zach Wilson in this game? Do you feel optimistic about getting a good Zach Wilson game if they do unload the playbook a little bit and live with the mistakes? Or do you feel like this is a big spot for him? It kind of feels like it's his last chance to really do anything, prove himself to the fan base. I mean, if he has a really tough game here again, it's like 1-3, then you're heading to Denver. It's like then you're kind of starting to turn towards Simeon if things really get ugly on Sunday. But again, if he has a good performance and even if they lose, it's like, all right, I can buy into maybe the Jets being 500 this year. So what do you kind of feel about the pressure on Zach Wilson's shoulders this Sunday?
Well, I can see the argument for this being a low pressure situation. I mean, after losing to the Patriots again and playing the way he did and having Joe Namath call him out, it's kind of hard to get lower than that. I know he is, probably playing for his job again at this point, so there's pressure in that. And it's prime time and it's the Chiefs, but at the same time, like, he's been benched twice, and last week was such a low point in terms of like again failing to get over that Patriots hump. So it does kind of feel like a situation where it's like, what more do you have to lose? But at the same time, I just don't really know if that situation necessarily gets the best out of him because, like, that's the narrative. But like, then you would think he would well in that Cowboys game a couple weeks ago at the end.
That
And it's
was
like, okay, you
that was
lost
the
the
problem
game already,
Sunday.
so just sling it. But then he threw 3 picks. So,
Yeah,
I
but
mean, I don't really know if that
that is true.
necessarily gets the best out of him.
That's true. He did throw those 3 picks towards the end of the game. I was going to say that 2-minute drive when they really just let him throw and he was scrambling a lot. I mean, they had success. When he's not thinking, he's better. I mean, look, we're trying to make, what's the saying here? I mean,
I know
the nice way is like lemonade out of lemons, but there's probably something with
something
shit
like
that we could use. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to make something out of Zach Wilson, but this really does feel kind of like a last chance type of thing. I mean, we'll see. I don't think it has to be that drastic. It's week 4, but like, man, I mean, if he goes out there and just shits the bed and the boo birds come out, I mean, and he really, really turns into a disaster, I just don't think he'll. I mean, I think most people have kind of given up on Zach anyway, but we'll see. I don't know. It was definitely the problem that I saw Sunday on film. Is there were a number of windows that were open, could have been tight, and he didn't throw it. He was like, "Don't turn the ball over," and it's like, yeah, well, at the end of the day, if you're going to be an NFL quarterback, you kind of have to. I mean, Darnold was almost too much on the other side, where it's like he trusted his arm too much at times, and he'd throw interceptions and some boneheaded picks. But you kind of have to have that arrogance. I think it's that coupled with give him easier situations. Let him throw on first down. Let him throw when the defense is stacking the box, single high, base personnel, and then let him build a play action game off that. I mean, I think that's the real thing. Don't just run it straight into Chris Jones on first down for 1 yard with Dalvin Cook, and then another run. Now we're 3rd and 10. Anything else on the offense before we get out of here? I mean, that was not our most in-depth preview. Oh, I guess we could do where the Jets are better and some random predictions, but I don't know if you have anything else in terms of matchups and whatnot.
Actually, there was something I want to talk a little bit about what I thought of the defense last game a little bit. Because it was interesting. It's another game. Yeah, we're all over the place in this one. So we didn't get super organized, which was mostly my fault because I was like struggling to find the motivation to do it. But we're fighting through, and it might be a little bit scattered, but we're gonna try to get to everything.
And we made it through 2020, Mike. We did preview pods for 2020.
We can get through that. We can get through anything.
Yeah, we were talking
travel. Although I don't know, that's
what this all goes back to.
Putting up a fight.
This all goes back to them fucking winning those goddamn games against the Rams.
I have my reactions recorded to that Rams game, and like going into this year, maybe going into 2022, it was like, oh, that's funny. Like, who cares about that at this point? But now, at this point, I look back at that, and I was like, I think that guy was right. He was onto something, being mad about that.
Save us, Rodgers, 2024.
But anyway, defense, like, it's another one of those games where on the scoreboard, at the end, 13 points. Any day of the week, you take that. But at the same time, I was a little disappointed with the way they played. And all the credit at the end, it was still a good game for sure. And you give them all the credit for that second half when they forced, what was it, like 6 or 7 punts in a row? I'm pulling it up right here. Yeah, 6 punts in a row, including those last 2 drives where 3 and outs when they absolutely needed to get it. So it was a good game for sure. But considering the circumstances at home, Mac Jones, not a great Patriots offense, poor weather, which favors the defense. Considering those things, I was a little underwhelmed, and they did have 2 missed field goals, so that could have put them at 19 points. But it's really just a lack of game-changing plays, which the Patriots did everything they could to avoid that. They were getting the ball out quick, they weren't really letting the pass rush get home. But at the end of the day, 0 sacks, 0 takeaways. They gave up a lot of third down conversions, and the Jets offense never started a drive on the Patriots side of the field. So I did want to see a little bit more dominance from them. And they rebounded well in the second half, but the first half was definitely shaky. And they, like I said, they were a couple missed field goals away from it being a 19-point half. So that first half was pretty bad, I think, all things considered. Second half, they rebounded, but I expected more. And there are some things to do better. I think talking about personnel and offense, I think defensively you could talk about it too. More Will McDonald on third down, less Jermaine Johnson, because I mean, not that you want to give up on him, but he can still play a lot of reps, but not play on third down as much because he's just not winning too much as a pass rusher. So I feel like Bryce Huff could play more. Like we've seen 2 straight games for him making really good plays against the run. I don't think he's so bad against the run where it's like get that guy off the field in a run situation. He's just an automatic 50-yard touchdown if he's on the field for a run. He's not that bad. Like you can deal with him maybe missing one run play here or there to get as many Bryce Huff pass rush snaps as possible. So I think you could look at that as well. But yeah, defense has been okay, but we know they're capable of better than I think what they've shown these past couple weeks.
All right, Michael, where the Jets are better. Want to get into that? Any other thoughts on this preview?
Let's get into where the Jets are better.
All right, here we go. Quarterback.
I feel like this one won't be. I don't know. Maybe there could be a couple difficult positions, but we'll see.
All right, quarterback, Jets or Chief? Who's better?
I mean, Simeon definitely makes this interesting.
All right, running back, Breece Hall, Old Man, Dalvin Cook, and Michael Carter versus Pacheco, McKinnon, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Pretty good stable for the Chiefs. But I mean, Breece is the best.
I mean, you got to go Breece, but I mean, Dalvin Cook really drags down the effectiveness of the whole unit.
How long until we get a Banacanda or even Carter over him?
Well, in fairness, they have decreased Cook's snap count pretty significantly in back-to-back games, so we'll see if that continues going that way, especially because Carter, I mean, he was blocking his ass off in that game. He had a ton of great blocks.
Oh my God, so the one that he came and flipped the guy over the A gap, I mean, that was elite.
Yeah, that's the type of thing the coaches will love. So maybe that'll get him some more snaps.
All right, receiver, we have Garrett Wilson, Lazard, Randall Cobb, McCole Hardman, Xavier Gibson versus Kadarius Toney if he plays, Sky Moore, Valdez Scantling, Justin Ross, Rashee Rice. Which unit would you rather have?
Jets.
All right, here we go. Jets on a roll. Offensive tackle, we got Becton and AVT versus Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor.
Much different conversation now with AVT.
I'm going Jets here. I'm going over Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor.
I mean, Donovan Smith is pretty old. He hasn't been great. It's the interior of this.
Yeah, Chiefs.
I mean, interior. Taylor is a really good pass blocker. His run blocking is not known as being great.
Did he get benched?
Although he was cheating in that Lions game. And he got like 5 penalties in that second game as they started cracking down on that.
See if he does it again.
I mean, AVT.
He's going to need to against Bryce Huff.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's maybe these tackles, edge rushers have a chance to do something.
Yeah.
Do we want to go Jets or push?
On the OT, I'm going Jets. Becton and AVT versus Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor.
Let's do it.
Interior is a much different
that part of the week where I start buying in.
Yeah, the Jets could do this. All right, interior, pretty clearly, I would say Chiefs here with Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, who everybody knew was going to be good, and Joe Thuney.
Versus, would they take over him?
Trey Smith, I think he was like a 6th-round pick, and that was 2020 or 2019? What year was that?
21.
Oh, it's 2021. So Carter, or is that Sherwood? So yeah, we're getting to Sherwood, Eccles,
defensive guys. I mean, Carter,
pretty good.
Both Michael.
I mean, look,
not as good as him.
Zach Wilson pick, and then even like the Elijah Moore pick, waters down how good that class could be. But I would still say it's a solid class. I mean, you have AVT, get Michael Carter II. We'll see. I guess maybe not solid. We'll see what Sherwood is.
At least two good starters.
Yeah, if you got,
which is kind of the going rate for most classes.
We'll see about Carter and Sherwood and Eccles, kind of what they end up being. But I mean, I don't know. Defensive.
Although more turned into Tippmann. So
that's true. I know. People were talking about there's rarely any 3-team NFL trades with the whole Lillard trade yesterday, and I was like, the Jets trade for Aaron Rodgers was pretty much a 3-team trade with the Browns, and it was essentially Elijah Moore in our 3rd for that 2nd, and then we could trade it to Rodgers. I mean, I don't know. It's the whole thing. Defensive end. Jets or Chiefs. We got JFM, Bryce Huff, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald versus Karlaftis, Mike Dana. I think this is pretty clearly a Jets dub. Interior is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'll give the Jets a dub, but I will say I've seen a lot that Karlaftis has been balling out, so we got to watch out for him.
Oh, God. All right, defensive tackle. Got Chris Jones and Derek Nandi versus Quinn Williams and Quentin Jefferson and Al Woods and Solomon Thomas. I mean, it's Quinnen versus Chris Jones.
I think I'll give it to the Chiefs. Chris Jones probably slightly ahead of Quinnen, maybe one of the two guys ahead of him.
Close.
And just because I think Al Woods is so bad. I just gotta be honest. Like anytime run defense is good, but like the pass rushing is such a zero. It's like because Jets fans watch the games and a lot of times will say, "Where's the pass rush? Where's the pass rush?" Usually the play they're talking about has Al Woods on the field, just standing there at the line of scrimmage. So I don't know. That's a pet peeve of mine.
They got to bring back Tanzel, who by the way got cut off the practice squad. So
yeah,
see if he gets brought back.
How are we doing?
I know. I'm surprised he didn't get claimed by anybody.
Just really aged poorly.
Yeah. Linebacker, we got Willie Gay, who's talking a bunch of shit this week. I mean, it wasn't crazy, but he just kind of laughed when talking about the Jets offense. Nick Bolton versus C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams. Ulbrich thinks Quincy's playing.
The linebackers are playing pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's go with Jets.
Whoa. Jets have the lead right now. All right, corner. I'm going to be honest. This one's pretty easy. You gotta go Jets here, too. This happens every fucking week.
Better than the Chiefs?
The Jets are better than every team, I think, so far. Safety. Whitehead and Amos, assuming Adams is out, versus Justin Reed and Brian Cook.
That's a pretty good duo from what I understand. I don't know a ton. I mean, Jordan Whitehead's kind of gone back to being last year version of himself over the last two games. I think he was the guy at fault on that Pharaoh Brown touchdown.
Either him or Sauce.
Honestly didn't watch it too closely, rewatching it, but we can say wash.
All right, push there.
Yeah.
All right, special teams. We don't know about Chiefs special teams. We'll keep it off. Well, with that, the Jets are a better team. So, with that said, Michael, I'm predicting a big dub this Sunday.
I just don't think people know anything about football. They just look at Chiefs and Jets, and they're like, Chiefs are better. They don't actually analyze like we do.
Who's the X factor? Who's the Jets X factor? Last week you said Mosley, and I said Brees. Both seem to be wrong. So,
I feel like Mosley had a pretty good game. It wasn't. They did, like we said, we talked about stopping the tight ends, running backs. They didn't do that, giving up a huge touchdown to a blocking tight end, essentially. All right, X factor in this game, Zach Wilson. No, we got to pick someone better than that. Do you have one that comes to mind immediately while I stall?
Whoever's covering Kelsey, I kind of want to put Sauce, but I feel like it's going to be a heavy mix of Whitehead and the linebackers. But I'll put Sauce. I think Sauce needs a big game. I think we could use a Sauce turnover, Sauce matching up with Kelsey. I don't know. I'll go Sauce for the X factor.
All right, so I will go with the defense here. I'm going to say Bryce Huff. I think going against those tackles, that's maybe the weaker spot of the – specifically, no, because Huff lines up on the right side usually. He'll face that left tackle. And, I mean, he's been moving this year, actually. But either way, I think if the Jets want to win this game, it's going to require a big defensive play, which they haven't been able to get the last couple weeks. When they won their first game, they had a lot of big defensive plays. And I think that's going to have to be their formula this year. So I look at Bryce Huff, the way he's been playing, a lot of pressures. I think he's really close to breaking out for that big sack where he gets the ball out, changes the game. I think he's got a shot to do it in this one.
All right. Random predictions for offense and defense. I won't even bother reading out ours from last week because they were way off. Let's see. 2 random predictions.
All right. I got a good one.
Okay.
So the Chiefs are going to hit a big passing play to Travis Kelce. It's going to be the opening drive, maybe like 30 yards. Jets bust the coverage or something. No one gets toasted, but it's like, who's covering him? So he hits like a 30-yard reception. It's his first catch of the game. So what does the broadcast do? Obviously, they go up to the press box. They're showing Taylor Swift. She's going crazy, but the Chiefs run hurry up. You don't see the start of the play.
What is this?
And because they're so focused on showing her, and you get back to the field, and Mahomes already has the ball. Bryce Huff is coming in, and he absolutely destroys him with a strip sack. It gets recovered by Jermaine Johnson, and he runs it in for a touchdown. Okay. That's my random prediction.
Covered by Jermaine
Jets
Johnson.
are winning this game.
For a touchdown. Nice. All right. Well, that was so good. I won't even ask for another one. That was so good. I won't even ask for another one. I'll say we get a special teams fake of some sort, whether it's an onside kick, a fake field goal, or a fake punt. I think we get a little special teams trick play. Actually, maybe just trick play in general. You know what? I'll broaden it up. You get hyper specific. I go as broad as possible.
Non-quarterback pass.
I'll go some successful trick play. I don't know if it's a Randall Cobb throw or whatever it is. I think they'll dig into the bag of tricks for this week, and we'll see something. And outside of that, man,
throwback uniforms are back.
Yeah, no, come on. I'll say the Jets force 2 interceptions. I'm trying to predict an interception here. I'll go DJ Reed interception. How about that?
Oh, throw him back to when he picked him off at Kansas State.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Michael.
All right.
You're 2-1 on the season. I'm 1-2. I've predicted Jets wins every week, so I don't feel like I can do that again. What are you predicting for this one?
My score is pretty close last week, just the wrong team. I said 14-10. Jets would win.
I had 20-10. All right, let's hear it, Michael. What's the prediction?
I'm going to say Chiefs 27, Jets 13.
Is it close at all?
I feel like it's going to be a close game throughout, and then they pull away later.
That's kind of what I'm feeling too. I'll say 24-17 Chiefs, but I think it'll be like 24-14, and then the Jets kick a field goal in the last drive as a morale win. We only lost
like a fake one-score game.
Yes, a fake one-score game. 24-17 Chiefs.
That would. I think this spread is 9.5 right now, so that would be a bummer for some people.
Yeah, I think they'll cover. I think they'll cover. I think it'll be a close game. I think we get a relatively good Zach Wilson game. I mean, relatively, but I don't think it's enough. And I think Mahomes is frustrating and has the ball for the entire game. High time of possession.
One last pick for both of us. Do you think Zach Wilson finishes the game?
Yes. I don't think we see our guy Boyle. I think we get a full Zach Wilson game. I'll put that in for you.
I'm gonna say yeah.
Full Zach Wilson game. That's your other prediction. All right, we'll see. Sunday Night Football. This is not the way we thought it would be, but to wait all day just to watch the Jets in primetime get embarrassed by a bunch of Swifties. Looking forward to it. Follow us at TYJ Pod. Follow Michael _Nania. Myself, Ben W. Blessington. Go to jetsxfactor.com. Best place to go for Jets content. Check out some of the other Jets X Factor pods. We upload them all to the YouTube, which I'm normally good at this, which you can subscribe to at Jets X Factor. Please rate, review, subscribe on iTunes if you can. I think that's it. Michael, last thoughts.
Throwback uniforms return.
It's going to be a great uniform matchup. Primetime football, Chiefs red versus Jets throwbacks. I just want them to keep it close. Can Zach Wilson have a nice game where maybe he throws 2 or 3 touchdowns over 250 yards? Keep it kind of close. Defense makes some big plays.
When was the Jets' last primetime win? Then I remembered it was 2 weeks ago.
Week 1.
I was there. But all right. I was thinking of watching them on TV. So when was the last one before that? They didn't win 121 or 20
or 19. Is it Darnold?
Yeah, they didn't win
Darnold week 1.
Either.
Darnold week 1 against the Lions.
I guess so.
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. All right, let's get out of here.
Considering how weeks here didn't really feel like a win, so this is an opportunity to actually have fun on primetime for once.
I so wanted to predict the win.
An amazing morale, just complete change of the mood. If you can win,
I just don't feel like
it would be awesome.
I feel like it's unserious for me to predict a win here. But come on, Zach.
First 3 games predicting Jets wins, you can't go again.
Can't do it in this situation. Come on, Zach. Just make it close, please. I don't want to deal with sad Nania the rest of the season. No offense. All right, we're out of here. Thank you for listening. Have a great week. Go Jets.